Hello everyone and welcome to Motorcyclegear.com. Today we're discussing the 5 things that I don't like about the Suzuki GSX-8S. Welcome back everyone. Today I am riding a Suzuki GSX-8S and it's time to talk about the 5 things that I don't like about this bike. Alright, so here's the thing. So far I have put a couple of 100 miles on this bike and there is truly a lot to like. If you haven't seen it, check out the last video where I talk about the 5 things that I like about this bike, but with that said, there are some things that are definitely a miss, and so I do want to talk about those. Now, before I dive into the list, I also want to mention that this list will be similar in some ways to my video on the 5 things that I don't like about the Suzuki V-Strom 800DE, and well, here's the thing. When you make bike models that are, similar, they share engines, they share parts, and are just what I call cousins, overall, like the GSX-8S and the V-Strom 800DE, they're kind of cousins. You kind of get a multiple of everything, right? So what that means is if you get something right and it spans across multiple models, then great. You got a multiple of something right. But if you miss something or get something wrong, well, you are now on the opposite end of that spectrum. You have multiple bikes with that same issue, and therefore you've got multiple issues. So definitely that's going to be the case here. My 5 things I like about both bikes, and now my 5 things that I don't like about both bikes, they are going to share some good and some bad, so be aware of that. Okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. Number 1 on my list of 5 things that I don't like about the Suzuki GSX-8S is going to be the tail. Okay, I know. DOT requirements make it so that pretty much all bikes come with an ugly tail. That's just how it is. I know it's a common thing, and it's why tail tidies are so popular, but for some reason, it just seems extra long and extra ugly on the GSX-8S. I really like the look and style of the bike as a whole, and then the tail just kind of ruins it. Thankfully that will be an easy fix, or should be an easy fix with aftermarket support, but in the meantime, to me it just really takes away from the bike's otherwise good looks. My other concern too is that everything is integrated into the tail. Most bikes have the brake light in the body, and then the turn signals are in the tail, so making a tail tidy not too hard, as you just kind of relocate the turn signals to the tidy and you're good to go. Or you can convert them into the brake light if you do like an integrated setup. You've got some options, right? In the case of the GSX-8S, with everything being on the tail, it makes it for a more tricky tail tidy, as you will have to relocate both the brake lights and the turn signals. So just more complicated than it needs to be, and just uglier and bigger than it needs to be. Alright, moving on to number 2 on the list of 5 things that I don't like about the GSX-8S, and that is going to be that it doesn't have the best hand controls. I feel that the clutch and brake lever are not the highest of quality, and the fact that the clutch lever isn't adjustable like the brake lever is just absolutely maddening. I said this in our V-Strom 800DE video as well, and I'll say it again. When bikes out on the market at half the price in the $4 to $5 grand price range come with both levers being able to be adjusted, it just makes absolutely no sense for the GSX-8S to not have that. The cost just can't be that high. It just seems like such an oversight on Suzuki's part to not have both levers be adjustable. Matter of fact, I would be willing to bet that the price of the bike really wouldn't go up at all if Suzuki were to spend a few extra dollars to get better and adjustable levers. Overall, I think the difference in price would be easily justified if there was one, and if the consumer would be happy to pay for it and wouldn't complain for higher quality controls. Alright, number 3 on my list of 5 things that I don't like about the Suzuki GSX-8S is going to be the sound. Okay, big asterisks here. The truth is, I'm just not a huge fan of parallel twins in general, or more so, I'm not a fan of how they sound, and this bike was having to go up against that bias to begin with, but still, even with that said, it doesn't exactly make the best sound. It's also kind of quiet. Now I get it, factory exhausts are quiet, not always making the best, sounds, but I'm thinking if Suzuki wanted some excellent marketing for this bike and wanted to really sell it as a sporty naked, then a slightly louder exhaust and a better sounding one could have gone a long way in that marketing. Thankfully for the GSX-8S, most of its faults or things that I don't like are fairly easily replaceable with the aftermarket, and all kind of sort of fall into the top 3 to 5 accessories or modifications that most riders do anyway. So again, not a horrible problem, but again, could have been much better. Alright, number 4 on my list of 5 things that I don't like about the Suzuki GSX-8S is going to be the mirrors. They look funny. They take away from the overall great look of the bike, and because they are so tall and the stems are so thin, they vibrate quite a bit, and so it feels like they are not at all useful, as the vibrations make them hard to see out of. These mirrors remind me of the ones that I had on my Vitpillen 401 a number of years ago, and the Vitpillen was less than half the cost of this bike, so I think some bar end mirrors would go a long way and do the trick here, or even ones that are shorter and more stable. For example, ones that have a thicker and shorter stem that'll help drive down the vibrations and just look more aggressive overall. They just seem like a bit of an afterthought here on this bike, so again, like the tail, this is one of those things that the aftermarket can really help with, and right away please, but thankfully it should be an easy fix. Again, like the exhaust, it does fall into the category of what most riders would do anyway, so not a huge deal, but would have also been a cheap fix for Suzuki to make in the beginning to make the bike look that much better from the factory. Okay, so last but not least, on the list of 5 things that I don't like about the Suzuki GSX-8S, well, if you saw our video on the 5 things that we do like, you already know what it is. I said that I love the display on this bike. The 5-inch TFT is absolutely fantastic, but I don't like the gas gauge. It just doesn't make sense to me. The color coordination is just off, and it's hard to tell if you are completely full or completely empty, as the last bar in the gauge is always lit up red. So it makes you think that you're always on the last bar. So unless you have like 3/4 of a tank or half a tank, you don't really know what to think at first. So let me go ahead and explain. Alright, so let me explain. When in the white background mode, for example, if the last bar is lit red, and because it's full, all the other bars are lit black, it looks like the black bars signify empty, and since they are all contrast to the last red bar color, it just makes sense to think, okay, I'm on that last red bar. Now, if you're actually down to the last red bar, you'll see all the other bars as white. Again, it's contrast to the red bar, so in both cases, whether you're full with all black bars or empty with all white bars, it looks like the only bar that's lit up is the red one or the last one, so making you think that you're on empty whether you're empty or full. It's not until you hit, say, 3/4 of a tank or half a tank that you realize that some bars are white, some bars are black, and the last one is red regardless, meaning that you have 1 or 2 bars empty, symbolizing that you're at 3/4 of half a tank. So again, there are some empty ones symbolized by a white bar, 1 or 2 full bars with the black. At least the bar is red, and like it just doesn't make sense. Like it doesn't correlate with a traditional car gas gauge or bike gas gauge that you'd be used to. Like it's always been that every bar is the same color, except for when you hit reserve, that's when the last bar changes color or is red or has some sort of like reference to it being the last bar. But here, no matter what you're in, it always looks like that last bar is lit up. So I don't know, kind of hard to explain, but really kind of drives me crazy. I feel like it should all be one color, like we're all used to, and then the red bar should only be red when you're actually in that last bit of gas on the bike. So, honestly, once you get used to it, it isn't too horrible, but initially it was quite annoying, and it kept kind of giving me anxiety every time, because I'd look down and go, oh, I'm almost out. Oh, no, wait, no, I'm actually really all the way full. Okay, cool. Like, it made me think and second guess it, which a gas gauge shouldn't do. Alright, so guys and gals, that's going to be it for the Suzuki GSX-8S. Be sure to visit Motorcyclegear.com. We would love to help you out with your motorcycle gear needs. You can also hit us up via phone or email. And if you'd like to share your thoughts on this video or the GSX-8S, feel free to drop a comment down below. Thank you all for watching. Till next time.